Okay, streaming.
Okay, 3-1 degrees, 2-1 south. 1-4 degrees, 2-1. Speed 1 kilometer, how far to go?
That's true. Yeah, I just didn't get the wind speed or direction, or it didn't make sense to me. Over.
1-5 from the east-southeast.
Yeah, I thought you said east-southeast. Alrighty. Thank you for that. Yes, I did get it, and I need to pass that on to family. So thank you for picking them up. So that boat, it's an old boat, but boy, it goes really well. It's interesting, some of these older designs, they can knife through the water rather well. All right, thank you for that, Harry. And, yep, you stay safe and enjoy the landfall. So thank you for that relay. Over. All right, this is Gulf Harbour Radio. We're here a bit early this morning. Is there anybody else before we get started? Anahata, good morning to you, and I have forgotten where you are or whether you left or not. Anahata, go ahead. So you're at Denarau and you are leaving today. Yeah, not a great signal from there, but a competition around you. So I've got that, so you'll be listening to David's weather shortly. Over. Boy, I'm just not picking that up. It's your radio is a bit of a challenge for me. Could anybody clarify that? Yeah, go ahead. I might be able to pick you up a bit better. Oh, thanks, Andrew. Tonga to Denarau. Alrighty. Well, I got the Denarau. That was about all I managed. Tonga to Denarau this afternoon. And while I'm reminding David to cover that passage, guys, it doesn't look very nice.
It's picking a terrible time.
A terrible time. I'm looking at the satellite picture. We also need to cover the Torres to Solomons. I bet you forgot about that one too. Yes. But anyway, we'll pick that up at the end. Thank you, Andrew. And boy, it's still not looking wonderful around the Fiji. I think all you guys will have to head to New Cal next year because it's absolutely looking lovely at New Caledonia. Eye Candy from Gulf Harbour. Oh, there's somebody else there. Who was that? Oh, I'm struggling with you too. It's not a very good morning, and I can tell you why it's not a very good morning, because good morning to everybody, actually. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH286, Patricia and David. The reason it's not a good morning on the radio is that it is a holiday in New Zealand. It is Labour Day here, and everybody is at home, probably cooking up a nice brunchy breakfast because they're on holiday and not at work. And the power lines going past my antenna are a bit active. So I will just have to do my best and rely on some of the stronger signals for relays here, and we'll go from there. So that boat, if you could just stand by a moment, and we'll see what we can do with relays. The weather here is, honestly, I cannot remember a better Labour weekend, and it's actually a little bit earlier than normal, a week earlier. It's usually at the end of the month. It is absolutely stunning. No wind, a blue sky. It's actually about 40% cloud cover now, but it's absolutely glorious here. So no wind from the north-northeast. It's just gone to 15, was up to 20, 21 yesterday. We've had 2 glorious days. The people coming in have been ecstatic. They've had east, northeast, pretty much all the way down. I see Lupan this morning. They are just about to lose me probably. They're at 2927 and 17343. They've got 13 knots of east-northeast. Boats are reporting 1 to 1.5 metres swell. I mean, it does not get any better. So everyone has had a pretty nice time of it. Exocet Strike, they are further south at 30 and 173, just ahead of you, Lupan, and they've got 13 knots of east-northeast as well, 1022. Just absolutely beautiful conditions. Heat wave managed to get right down, gorgeous conditions down the west coast, and they're not too far from Queen Charlotte Sound. They're just taking it very slow to check in tomorrow. And virtually no wind, 10 knots from the northwest actually down there. So conditions are absolutely beautiful out there at the moment, and we're all enjoying the holiday weekend. I'm just going to do a pause. Could that boat that was trying to get through come again with your boat name a couple of times, and I'll see if I can get a relay. Okay, I think I can work out where you are, but I haven't had any pre-knowledge of your boat name though, so it's a bit of a challenge for me. Where are you and where are you going? Over. Okay, I have you at 2247 and 17341 east. You're going to have to get a move on after you listen to David's weather. What are your conditions at the moment? Okay, I didn't get too much of that, but I tell you what, you will, just from memory of what David was muttering about last night, you will need to put the pedal to the metal. But anyway, you'll listen carefully. Are you copying me okay? Over. Okay, that's good. So we'll take it that you'll be able to hear the weather shortly from that position. So there are more people who have left by the sound of it, so we'll certainly be covering that this morning. What I'll do now, seeing as conditions for my hearing are not all that great, I'll breeze through some news from the weekend, and then David will get on to the weather. Now, we've had another shark attack. This is very unusual for New Zealand. We expect to get these from Australia, but there has been another shark attack just off Dargaville, which is just north of Whangarei, an hour or so. A surfer was attacked. Fortunately, he had a surfboard because he took a chunk out of the surfboard, left a tooth. So he's got a tooth plus a bit of what was taken out of his arm. He's okay, but another shark attack in New Zealand, which is really unusual. For those people that are in Tonga, there was a very spectacular Tonga versus Australia rugby league game here in Auckland over the weekend. It was like the old days. The park was totally red. I'm not sure that there was any brave Australian supporters there, but everybody was there. I've never seen so many red flags in the pictures. They were singing. Unfortunately, they got beaten, but didn't seem to matter too much. They had a very good time there, and certainly it was packed to capacity, by the way. It was amazing. Ethiopia, let's go to Ethiopia. They are building a dam that could take most of the water from the Nile. And it will affect, of course, the vegetation on both sides of the Nile. I thought that was a bit strange, and it made me wonder how on earth you could stop anybody doing something like that. I suppose the United Nations can wax lyrical about it, but if they want to do it, they'll do it probably. For those people that are about to come to New Zealand and want to keep fit, you know, often when you come, you sort of get stuck in a place and you're not doing an awful lot, not diving and et cetera, et cetera. Just a reminder to join a nationwide one, so that you, as you move around the countryside having a look, you can hop into a gym. I belong to Jets, which is one of the ones. I think it's in Australia and New Zealand, and they've got gyms all over the place. And then you'll be fit enough to do the coast to coast. But we have this big event every year. I think it's in February. You've got time to get really fit. It's 243 kilometres of cycling, mountain running, and kayaking. It takes 2 days. You start over on the west coast at Kumara, and you manage to get to Brighton Beach, which through the Waimakariri Gorge, which is totally spectacular, on the east coast by Christchurch. So if you are one of these real fitness fanatics, there's a challenge for you. Going to the UK now, there's been a big rush, over 3,500 people in fact, rushing to reclaim German citizenship. Now how's that for a turn back in time? Evidently there were thousands of families who fled, mostly children, sent their children, mostly Jewish, from Germany during World War II. And now they are trying to, well, they can. It's open to them to reclaim citizenship. So they have to do that prior to Brexit so that they are EU people. And there is a lot of people taking advantage of that. Mr. Trump is back in the news again. It's always good to hear what he's up to. And he has ended a decade-old nuclear arms treaty with Russia. That was the one that was signed in December 1987 by President Reagan and President Gorbachev. It covers ground-launched ballistic and cruise missiles with ranges between 300 and 3,400 miles. But evidently Russia has violated it. Mr. Trump hasn't been all that specific, but there's been several violations over the years, and NATO has confirmed these breaks. So he's decided that's enough. We're pulling out, which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, we're back to a bit of tension between America, China, and America and Russia. And hopefully there'll be a bit of tension between Russia and China to balance things out. For you Aussies in Australia, boy, I just got worried about my dashboard here. It's all right. Good morning, Diego. Looking at my streaming, make sure it's okay. In Australia, the Wentworth by-election was lost, by the look of it, by the Liberal Party. This is Malcolm Turnbull's old seat, where when he resigned once he got replaced as Prime Minister. The independent candidate, Karen Phelps, has won on election night, but there are still postal votes to be counted, but it does look as if it will be lost. And that means that the Liberals now have only 75 of the 150 seats, so a very sticky position for them, and very likely that they'll have to probably have another election. Well, nothing like instability in politics. If you want to get an awful lot of money, that Mega Million lottery in the United States I talked about the other day, it's up to 1.66 billion. Oh. 1.66 billion this Wednesday. So, boy, that's think of the tax though. Imagine how much tax you'd have to pay.
Yeah, who cares?
All right, just another warning. A young fellow actually got meningitis and died very rapidly on Motutapu Island. That's an island here in the Gulf, but he was from Northland. For those folks coming to New Zealand, this happens from time to time and frequent enough to be of a worry. Meningitis kills you very quickly and very painfully, actually. So never, ever, ever use somebody's whistle if you're involved in sporting events. Never pick up somebody's whistle. Never drink from somebody else's water bottle, no matter how thirsty you are. Just be very, very careful, particularly, if it's a youngish person where their hygiene is not so great. It is transferred that way. You don't sort of get it by touching something. You get it from those sorts of contaminations and take it into your digestive system. So be very, very careful of meningitis. It's a problem here in New Zealand because of our very high level of people from the islands. All right, this is what I would call a thank you to your WinLink operator week. The WinLink operators do a wonderful job, save you an awful lot of money. You don't have to join SailMail. And it's always nice to just acknowledge them. They are just these silent donators who give their time, their equipment costs and power costs to you guys out there. So it's always nice to remember to thank them at the end of the season. So you'll probably get home and forget about it because you will be able to connect to the internet. So why not give them an email now and thank them for being there and thank them for having you use them for the week. And talking about WinLink, Max from Y2K, one of you out there, has now arranged for the New Zealand Met Service analysis and progs to be available on WinLink Express and AML3. So you can look up his website. I think that's the easiest way of doing it. Look up the website that he has, which is http blah 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 www. It's .y2k. That's his boat name, Y2K. Just 3 letters, 1 digit. Y2K Sail, SAIL.com, and you can read all about it on there. But that's really fantastic. It's about 18k, so you can use your sat phone connections. Will work pretty well. You could order just one, like the next day, the 24-hour, or you could do the analysis 24, 36, and 72 if you want all 4. And they update automatically, so it doesn't matter when you connect. You can get the latest New Zealand progs, and these are really very useful for you, more useful in fact than your groups, because they are done by real meteorologists at the Met Service, and coming south they are very, very useful. All right, so if you need any more information on that, you could email me, but just go on to the y2ksail.com Max's website, and you can work it all out from there. All right, report from Diego in Candavu. It's overcast, rain. God, does it ever stop raining in Fiji?
No.
15 to 20 knots from the east-southeast. So there you have it. And Inahata is leaving Fulanga to dinner out. All right, so that's good. We've finally got hold of that one. That's a really strange radio on Inahata. So, by the way, he just confirms that those new maps are in the WinLink catalogue, by the way, SailMail and WinLink catalogue. So you can go straight to that one. I think they've got a really good connection with the guy that organises the catalogue now, which is good, gets it really up to date. It would be nice if they scrapped a lot of the junky stuff that was in there to make things easier to find. But you can find them in the WinLink catalogue, so that's good.
Don't forget
All right.
They're available on CSI.
Oh, of course, yes, David's just reminded me that those of you that have got the Weather Facts programs on your single sideband can get it, tuning in at the correct time and get it through your single sideband as well.
15 years now.
Yes, that's been available for a while. We had a fax machine, so that's what we use, but there's not too many fax machines on boats these days. But the computer works well. Sometimes it gets juxtapositioned, but then you can sort that out if it's not too rough. I never liked having to do that if the boat was a bit rough. All right, we're going to get onto the weather now, and then we can cover the sorts of things that we haven't got around to covering after David's finished with the weather. We'll miss a few people that are too close to us, but they'll be enjoying lovely conditions. You won't need to worry about them. And here's David.
All right, good morning. And, well, those on passage are having a very fine time of it, more or less as we forecast, which is very, very good to hear, that's for sure. Looking at 500 millibar for this morning, we've got a very, very nicely formed ridge that's sitting over the eastern Tasman. The axis is roughly 170 east, and just to the west of this one is a shortwave trough, and that's creating trouble for the western Tasman. Plus, there is a very, very nasty shortwave over the Australian Bight. We're following and giving some weather to a single-hander that's doing a circumnavigation, a lady by herself, of course. And right now she's approaching Tasmania. We'll be there in a day or so. So let's look at the surface charts. Today, our high is still, thankfully, with us, sitting over New Zealand. Central pressure, 1025 millibar. The upper shortwave to the west has created, like I said, a depression that's just to the east of Tassie. And it's located roughly 40 and 153 east. It has a series of troughs that are pushing north, almost up to the Coral Sea. It doesn't quite go up that far, but you can see quite a bit of cloud on the satellite imagery. However, where we are, our luck continues right through, well, tomorrow and Wednesday. The high is still anchored over New Zealand. It's going to be roughly 1027 millibar, 1027 millibar. It gets a little bit stronger. So this is just fantastic news for those of you on passage. It's going to provide easterlies, fresh easterlies from the islands, all the way down to 30 south. Then the wind, the usual backing takes place from 30 south to New Zealand. Now on Friday we warned that those en route should arrive in New Zealand by the 26th or the 27th. That's another 5 days or so from now. Now this still pretty much holds. So those underway who left late, the window is still there, but you need to have left. So there you go on that. Now winds today at 25 south are easterlies about 20 knots, and it's going to be about the same thing tomorrow. 30 south on Wednesday, which is the 24th, we'll see east, northeast, and northeast, and that depends on your longitude. In other words, at the date line, it would be south-southeast. The further west you go, the more backing that you get with the wind. Now on Thursday, here comes the frontal band, just as forecast, preceded by northwest winds, with the front probably around midnight. Now this front is fairly mild. Now there is a second band, a second frontal band, if you will, with a lot more punch that's going to be arriving roughly Saturday the 27th, maybe around noontime, in there somewhere. Now the early yachts that have left a while ago, they're here in New Zealand, so no problem with that. The yachts that waited just a few days from there, underway, but are nearly here, no problem, they're going to make it fine. And that leaves us with still just a few boats left to get in that did leave rather late. So no problem with any of it. This is probably one of the better weather windows that we've had, and I'm glad so many of you took advantage of it. Now, there were questions bandied about on email over the weekend asking about another window starting today. The ideas about this window are not particularly good ones, I would say. To begin with, Fiji has a strong wind warning and quite an active trough to deal with. Departure winds east to east-southeast, 20 to 25 knots. You heard the reports a minute ago. So it's blowing pretty good. Visibility is not so red hot either. So if you do go, be careful about that. The Tonga yachts, virtually the same thing. There's a trough there, east to southeast, 20 to 25 knots, and that's rising to 30. So departures are pretty sporty, that's for sure. And still going to be just as windy tomorrow. Now, yachts would probably, or the ones that brave this, and you'd arrive 25 south by maybe Thursday or Friday this week. There, the winds are not too bad. Easterlies about 15 to 20. And on Friday and Saturday, I see some weather changes with convective activity making the wind direction quite variable. Depending upon your longitude, you could have northerlies or you could have southerlies. And Sunday looks pretty clearly that we'll be receiving southerly quadrant winds. So winds on the nose, I'm afraid, by then. In fact, that will be through next Tuesday. So Sunday through Tuesday, headwinds. On Tuesday, we will find a Tasman depression, and that front from it extends up to Hervey Bay, and the active cold front itself is probably going to arrive in New Zealand just a few days later. So those of you that go today have all of that to look forward to, I'm afraid. Those of you that take the passage, well, like I said, you're going to get beat up a bit today and tomorrow. Then, in summary, the winds are going to ease a little bit for you. Almost too much of an ease. You might have to do a bit of motoring. And then you're going to have a period of headwinds. So overall, I can't see this as a particularly good passage window. But some people just want to go, and they go. So there you have it. Now over to the tropics, where our pesky Solomon's Trough, actually it's not just the Solomons, it's down in the Louisiade as well. It's still with us. It extends a couple of branches. One of them goes to northern Vanuatu, which splits, and that enables Fiji to get even soggier than it has been, if that's possible. This trough continues on to Wallis and Futuna. It goes on to Samoa and eastward from there. And there's another trough that runs from Tuvalu to Tokelau, and the last one, this was the other branch, goes from Fiji to Tonga. So looking a little bit closer at Tonga now, Tonga Met has issued a strong wind and heavy damaging swell warning for all Tongan coastal waters. Expect east to southeast winds 20 to 25 knots, rising up to 30. All of this is combined with a heavy southeast swell. Now, the airport conditions early this morning, it's about 6 a.m. Vavau, southeast 12 knots, scattered to broken clouds, and the barometer 1014 if you want to check your barometer. The Hapai's easterlies at 18, scattered to broken, barometer 1015, and down at Tongatapu, east-southeast, only about 10 knots, scattered to broken there, barometer 1016. And overall, the winds may ease a little bit by Wednesday. It's windy today, tomorrow, but Wednesday a little bit of an ease. So we'll see what happens there. Over to Fiji now. Things are very colorful on the satellite image. Yep, there's plenty of cloud. There's a few breaks here and there. We'll get some sunshine for a few minutes someplace. But all in all, not very great looking. Our trough persists, and so does the heavy rain alert for most of Fiji. This is put out by Fiji Met Service. They're worried about localized falls causing heavy flooding. It's very, very possible for this to happen. And this should continue right through tomorrow as well. And of course, with this comes the thunderstorms. So beware of the strong gusts that come down from these thunderstorms and the definite directional changes when this occurs. Now, Fiji Met also has a strong wind warning in force, east to southeast 20 to 25 today and tomorrow. So if you are underway, just remember there's going to be poor visibility, so be very careful going through the passes and so forth. Not to mention the rough seas that we're going to have, and we do have a moderate to a heavy southerly swell coming in, so you don't want to hit some rocks going out. Not a good idea, so be very careful. Vanuatu on imagery shows the trough affecting the northern areas, scattered to broken to the south. Winds east-southeast in the 20-knot range today and tomorrow, I would think. It's lighter up in the banks, believe it or not. That's a switch. Usually it's the other way around. And on Wednesday, east to east-southeast, still in the 20-knot range for the group in general. And two people had asked about running from the Torres or the banks up to the Solomons. over the next few days. It doesn't look bad at all wind direction-wise. The winds are mostly southeast in that quadrant, if you will, give or take on that. The only thing is there's going to be convective activity. I think we're going to see troughing and whatnot. So if you do make that trip, you're going to have winds in a very good direction. If you call winds being behind you a good direction, we actually hate that. But at least you're not beating. So that's good. So just be careful of the nighttime squalls and the pretty good odds of having troughing for that run. Over to New Caledonia now. It doesn't look too bad. Scattered cloud for the most part. Today in our lagoon, I would expect easterlies about 15 to 20 knots and picking up a little bit later to, well, believe it or not, 20 knots, maybe gusting 30 a little bit later today. So not too good for the lagoon. Tomorrow, east to southeast winds about 15 to 20, partly cloudy skies. So overall, it's not bad, but it's not good for the lagoon. So if you're got things to do on land, that would probably be a good time to do it. The ELOs are going to be a bit sporty out there, so they may not be a good idea. But things could change, so just eyeball what's going on and go from there. And that's pretty much all I've got. If you have any questions or comments, feel free. Those of you that do leave today for New Zealand, you'll hopefully be in contact with us on the radio. We would like to get your conditions as you're sailing along so that I can match them up with my models, and we'll go from there. So any questions or comments that you might have, now is the time. Here's the chief.
Yeah, I was just checking things on the radio here. Adam, go ahead. Bravo.
7 degrees, 02 minutes south, 155 degrees, 37 minutes east, and we're probably motoring at a speed of 5.2 knots, on a course of 244 true. We have 3.5 knots of northwest wind. Usually it gets up to about 4.5, and we have very light seas, and we have just about 130 miles to go to Southport. So we've only had, I would say, about 6 or 8 hours of sailing since we left New Caledonia. Otherwise, it's been a motorboat ride. There are worse things, I guess, but
yeah, well, I tell you what, there are worse things, because we talked to Harry before the net started, and he had a rather blustery 20 knots of southerly. He was very close to Coffs Harbour, 15 knots, and that frontal system is just sort of hovering around. So, yeah, be careful what you wish for. We've got Allison and Randall, they're at 23 and 158, and they've got next to no southerly there, 7 knots. But yeah, I'll just pass the microphone because you're going to have to deal with that. Hang on.
There is a very small low that's spinning around there. It's in the probably just east, just a little bit north and east of Brisbane. I'm looking at it on satellite imagery here, Tricia. I'm having Tricia looking over my shoulder here.
Yeah.
And it's spinning around right there. So right along the coast, yes, there are southerlies. So if you're above your destination, north of your destination, and along the coast, you're going to have to deal with a headwind there, I'm afraid. It doesn't look like the winds are all that strong.
We have said 20 knots.
But, yeah, well, 20 knots. But you can see that. You can see the spinning. And so within that little bit of a low, yes, the winds will be stronger. So that's unfortunate that it just popped up. It's part of a trough that's coming up from the south. And for some reason, we just decided to do some spinning right there. And the reason is the upper level shortwave. that I talked about earlier. It's right there. It's smack dab over that Brisbane area. So that's causing a little bit of a spin on the surface, and that, I'm afraid, is what you've got. It's a homecoming present. Over.
Okay, well, we'll be looking out for it. Yeah, we should be arriving in about 24 hours, so sounds like that's what we have to deal with. Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate you being there.
All right, yeah, there's nothing like the last 24 hours. Boy, I still remember the last, it was only about 3 hours. We virtually had no wind at midnight approaching Opua, and then I didn't turn the engine on. I was on watch because we had a slipping fan belt and it made a lot of noise, so I didn't want to wake David up. Didn't use the engine in flat, calm conditions, just sort of ghosted along. And then we got hit by two lows converging, and 4 hours late, well, I went to bed after my watch, got woken up by the swearing and cursing from the person on watch, and boy, had it changed rather rapidly. The boat was all over the show, and coupled with that, we had a humongous container ship hell-bent on mowing us down. So, yeah, that was our last 3 hours. So things can change rather rapidly. Hope you don't have the same sort of thing happen. Anyway, is there anybody else before we go and enjoy our Labor Day weekend here? Oh, hello. We've got Pilgrim and Eye Candy. Good morning, Ron. You will be amazed that there is an absolutely glorious Labour weekend here, because I know you guys will have probably experienced, like I have, some quite different ones. I'll pick Eye Candy because you're quite strong, Andrew. If you could pick up Quintessa and tell us where they are, please. I'll leave it with you and get back to me when you're finished, because no sign of Alan here. Over. Those little wax eyes are pretty, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
The little wax eyes were pretty.
Is that, what do you call it?
Wax eyes.
Wax eyes.
Because they've got sort of a waxy eye.
I didn't. I wish I had known that to look.
There you go. 12 and 161.
$161.
Yep.
You're doing your course, are you?
161 west.
West, yes.
What's the latitude?
12.
You're actually passing, is that correct?
Going to Atatürk.
You're sailing right into a trough.
Yep, I've got all that. Thank you for repeating. 12 and 161 heading to Atatürk, right towards a trough. That sounds like Alan. I thought having Denise on board, he might have gone somewhere a bit more pleasant, but bit snotty, but he'll deal with it. Andrew, over. Atatürk, hasn't it got a fairly shallow anchorage?
I always get confused about that.
Oh, thank you. We would like to know where Liberation is. Go ahead, please. Over.
Go ahead, Liberation. This is Paul.
Mezzaluna not going, and ICA are looking to go tomorrow, according to Jeff. I'm streaming. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, your position is 31 degrees, 25 south. 164 degrees, 35 east. You're holding hands with Melody, and you are feeling 166 degrees magnetic with a knot, and the ground is 13 knots of wind that I didn't give because the direction of the wind is how far you have to run over. Okay, 13 knots of east-southeast, 225 miles to run to the entrance to the bay of good copy.
Excellent copy, thanks, Harry. And we're chuckling a bit here with boy, they're nicely timed, those boats. They go well. Anyway, I've got all of those details and confirmed the east-southeast. I was a bit puzzled about that because further north is east-northeast, but Villermy has got east-southeast as well, although they're further west than those two boats. They'll all be arriving about the same time, so they'll have a very good catch-up together when they arrive. I think David might have a comment. Any comment?
Yeah, closer to New Zealand. It's going to change to that direction.
I can't hear you. Closer to New Zealand?
Yeah, the northeast wind is not going to prevail once you get real close.
Okay, so the northeast wind is not going to prevail when you get close to New Zealand, so that's why they've got that east-southeast. So sounds very pleasant, and I thank you for picking them up because I'm sure family will be interested to know. All right, so thanks. And you've got a few boats coming towards your 20 knots of southerly by the sound of it, Harry. Over.
About 3 miles behind me. Harry, did you get Patricia? Okay, she said she understands when that's a new thing, so that's about all I can think of.
I think I'll turn off streaming because there's not much more happening there.
Back to you, Patricia.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. All right, I'll do one final call. Anybody else for Gulf Harbour Radio before we leave the frequency to you? Cheers all. Heard, so streaming is